Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Father-Son Packers podcast, your source for Packers news, notes, and analysis. My name is Tommy, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, my dad, Matt. Dad, how you doing?
Doing all right. Made it out to the golf course today, and I didn't totally suck this time.
And you didn't throw out your back either, it sounds like, so win-win?
Win-win. My shoulder's doing okay afterwards.
Over, under, 4.5 balls lost. That's what I put the line at. For 9 holes. Imagine you played 9 holes.
It was 18 holes.
18 over under 6.5, 7.5.
What about
lost.
net?
Did you find any? Does that? I'm going to just go balls lost. The more you lose, the more
I
likely you're to found some. It's true.
Right. So I don't know. I'm not sure exactly how many I lost because I found a number as well. But I know I was net down about 4 balls. So I probably lost about 8.
Okay, so my line was pretty good, 7.5 for 18. That's a decent line right there. We'll take the over. We'll hit the over each time. And because the thing is, the more you hit,
it was a lot better than the time I lost 15 a couple months ago.
Tin cup in it.
Oh yeah, it's like you're down to your last ball.
If someone tells me I'm down to my last ball, that the first shot I hit, as soon as I know that is going straight into the woods, I'm shanking that thing no matter what. But anyway, thank you so much for tuning in and listening to us ramble. But we are here today to talk a little bit about the Packers and talk a little bit about we're in the heart of the offseason. So we're just going to start talking a little bit about some more bigger picture concepts. Today, we're going to be focusing on the offensive line because it is, pretty much the engine of the offense. No team can be good with a bad offensive line. That is something, you watch the NFL long enough, you realize, hey, you can't block anyone, you're not going to win. So that's going to be
even if a good quarterback's just out there running around for his life. It was like Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl.
Exactly. It's like the only thing that could stop Patrick Mahomes from winning a Super Bowl was when both of his tackles went down. And so for the Packers, for, Jordan Love to continue his growth, for this offense to continue what we saw in the second half of the year, they're going to need competent and better than competent. They're going to need good, above average, great offensive line play if they're going to get where they want to go. So today we're going to be talking about some of the Packers always talk about getting their best 5 out there, getting their 5 best linemen out there. And we're going to talk a little bit about some offensive line combinations that the Packers might be rolling out in the fall, assuming health, knock on wood. And so we're going to be talking about some of the strengths of some of those, which ones our favorite are, some of the weaknesses of even the ones that we like. So we're going to be going through, I think, 2 each we put together and talked about, hey, this is what this line would be good at. This is what this line would be bad at. Here's where, something that we don't like about this line. Here's something we like about this line. So we're going to be talking about the offensive line today. But before we do, there were a couple pieces of news. We're going to talk a little bit about Packers mandatory minicamp. But first, Dad, in a slightly Packers adjacent piece of news, well, actually, before any of that, let's do a quick couple pitches. A little cliffhanger there. That's a little podcasting professional tip right there. But before we do that, if you like what you hear here today, come give us a follow on Twitter at FatherSonPacker. We tweet out whenever we have, new episodes out, stats from these episodes when we're doing our research, articles and content from other Packers content creators, news from, Packers camp, from Packers offseason, injury reports, roster moves, et cetera, et cetera. So, one-stop shop and everything Titletown. Come follow us again. Once again, that's at FatherSonPacker on Twitter. And then subscribe to us on your podcast platform of choice, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. We even put all our episodes out on YouTube if you want to check them out there. We just got done with doing deep dives into all of the Packers drafted rookies. So if you want to go check those out, really great stuff there in terms of, deep dive into how they performed at the college level, what their, measurables might tell us about the type of player they might be at the professional level. What Packers coaches, Packers front office have to say about them, what scouts had to say about them, et cetera, et cetera. So, go check those out if you're interested in hearing more about, Jordan Morgan, Edgerrin Cooper, et cetera, et cetera. But like I was saying earlier, as I teased, the piece of Packers related adjacent NFL more like news is that today, right before we started recording, Trevor Lawrence signed an extension with the Jacksonville Jaguars for $55 million, $55 million a year, that is, $200 million guaranteed at signing, as first reported, I believe, by Adam Schefter, but I might be, I'm pretty sure Adam Schefter and Ian Rappaport were all chasing each other to that one. But the reason that this is Packers adjacent is, if you didn't know, the Packers are trying to sign Jordan Love to a contract extension right now as well. And so a signing like this, which, $55 million makes him
keeps going up.
The price just keeps going up. The $55 million makes Trevor Lawrence tied for the highest average annual value on a contract with Joe Burrow. And so I would imagine, Dad, Jordan Love's agent is probably looking at that and being like, well, at least 55. We want at least 55.
With every signing that happens, Jordan Love's lawyer is the guy behind the tree rubbing his hands together meme.
His agent, but yes.
His agent, yes.
So I have 3 questions for you, Dad, and you can choose to answer them as you wish. The first is, do you think that Jordan Love will come in above or below Trevor Lawrence's $55 million? So what are your thoughts? I'm thinking at least 55 and maybe a touch above. I'm going to guess like 55, 57, somewhere in that range, but a little bit above Lawrence because like we were talking about, well, go ahead. I won't speak for you.
Yeah, I think it's going to be close though. I think it's going to be maybe like 55 and a bit, just like, I just need to be more than that. I just need to be more than that. It's like you're the top paid player.
Do you remember when
for a day?
Do you remember when David Bakhtiari?
Yeah, Trent Williams got like $1. Was it $1 more?
It was like $5,000 more. It was literally just to say he was the highest paid tackle, or at that point, it might have been highest paid non-quarterback even.
It might have been.
So that was my first question. Second question: who do you think signs first? Do you think Tua gets a contract extension? Like, do you think Jordan Love's going to wait for Tua to sign? Because that's the other big one coming down the pipe.
They might be waiting for Tua to sign. And maybe that's why nothing's really been happening. He's been waiting. I don't think he'll wait for Dak to sign because who knows when that's going to happen.
Probably, yeah.
I would have been hearing about just how much leverage Dak has because he can't be franchise tagged. So he can go anywhere if they don't. If Dallas
and he has a no trade clause. So he gets to choose where he's traded if he's traded. That's the other thing. Okay, so you're thinking that they might be waiting for Tua. I'm thinking I don't think they're going to wait that much longer. I think this sets a fine floor for them. I think they were probably just waiting for one of Lawrence and Tua to sign, and then to be like, hey, like our guy has not done it as long, but his like peak last year was higher than either of those quarterbacks have been so far in their career. I mean, and maybe you can argue Tua's had more successful seasons. Just he's put up great like counting numbers in terms of like leading the league in passing yards, et cetera, et cetera. And then my final question is, do we see it before training camp?
I'm gonna say yes.
I hope yes. I really do. I don't want this to drag on into that.
Yeah, I'm gonna say otherwise he's like barely gonna play, do anything in
the preseason, et cetera.
He certainly wouldn't play in preseason.
Nope, not yeah, and I wouldn't blame him because I wouldn't. But anyway, so that's just a bit of NFL news going around. Maybe by the time you're listening to this, we already have a Jordan Love extension, which would be fantastic. But just don't be surprised when that number is north of 50 million, north of 55 million, because that is just the going rate for quarterbacks these days. And once it's your turn, you're pretty much going to set the new price. But Dad, we do have some more Packers related stuff to talk about, unless there's anything on the Trevor Lawrence contract you wanted to touch on.
No, I think we got enough of that.
Okay, well, let's play our favorite game. The past 2 days, or not past 2 days, Tuesday and Wednesday, we had open Packers mandatory minicamp. So, little bit of big deal, little deal, no deal, Dad. Do you want to start us off with, something that you took an eye to, and this little game we play where, we bounce one off of each other, and the other one decides, whether they think that this piece from camp, or sorry, not minicamp, is a big deal, a little deal, or no deal at all. Dad, what was your first one?
Okay, so this is kind of an obvious one, but I'm going to go from a particular direction. Clifford throws 3 picks, all to Zane Anderson in one practice.
I'm going to say no deal. This just doesn't move me at all. Number one, I mean, on the Zane Anderson side, it's good to know he exists. He is a real person. We know that he is out there now. On the Clifford side, it's minicamp. The point is to try things. He's had a rough, OTAs and minicamp, and I'm sure, Michael Pratt is breathing down his neck at this point.
Well, that's the question, how it relates to Pratt versus Clifford.
I think they're going to end up keeping 3 quarterbacks is kind of how I'm feeling it. I think, Matt LaFleur, was asked something tangentially related to Clifford in his last press conference after the, final day of minicamp. And he was pretty much like, yeah, no, he was very complimentary of, what Clifford gave them last year and brought to the team last year in terms of how he prepared every day, in terms of he was preparing as though he was the starter. But he went out of his way to, give Clifford some praise with regards to, how he did last year. So I don't think 3 picks in minicamp is going to change that. Maybe if training camp continues the same way and it's also like really bad and Pratt continues to stack positive days, maybe they just go with Pratt and they go with 2 quarterbacks. But I think that it doesn't matter so far. That is my take.
Okay. Fair enough.
Were you moved at all by?
I'm
by
a little
that?
bit more like, I think he's fallen behind Pratt.
Yeah, we'll see. I know that, but the thing is, Clifford knows the offense way better, and I think they're just more comfortable. But I guess you're right. We'll see for now. My piece is, a couple of people have reported this, but Andy Herman most notably. Jordan Morgan early struggles at OTAs and minicamp. Most significantly, like losing. I mean, got flattened by Rashawn Gary, which is going to happen. But losing to guys like Aaron Mosby, losing some reps there. Big deal, little deal, or no deal?
It has me worried.
You're worried?
It's getting me a little worried at this point that he's losing to people he shouldn't lose to.
See, what I want to know is that rep to Mosby, and it wasn't reported anywhere in terms of how it was he at left tackle, was he at guard, or was he at right tackle? Because if he was at right tackle or either guard spot and he lost that rep, or he losing reps to quote-unquote people he shouldn't lose to, whatever. You're learning a whole new position. You're learning whole new footwork. Like, that's fine. But if he was at left tackle when he lost that rep, it's like, okay, you've played left tackle your whole life. This guy is probably as good or slightly worse than most of the players you played against in the Pac-12. You should be winning that rep. But at the same time, pads aren't even on. I imagine it's harder to block people when you don't really have as much to grab onto. Because a lot of times, they're locking onto the pads. Like, you got nothing to grab when there's no pads. I see. So what was it? Big deal, little deal, or no deal?
Little deal. I don't think it's a big deal yet. Your point about what position he's playing is interesting because he's probably going through the process of completely figuring out what his footwork is to stay in front of the pass rusher.
That's what I'm saying. Is like it matters to me where he was when he lost those reps, which wasn't said, but they're moving him around a lot from left tackle, left guard, right tackle. Matt LaFleur said, the mental stuff is like hard for him. But at the same time, I think if it was super challenging him, they wouldn't be putting him at 4 spots. So I guess we'll see. Dow, what was your next bit from minicamp?
So this is really based on, I think, a single play, but this whole report about Edgerrin Cooper sniffing out an offensive play to the point where Matt LaFleur asked did you guys show him what the plan was?
I mean, I'm going to say big deal. Screw it. Let's go big or go home. I think this is my first.
We're getting on the hype train already.
I think this is the first big deal I've given for any of these because, let's face it, it's OTAs and minicamp. But at the same time, it's like, have we ever heard this about a linebacker they've taken before? I can't remember hearing this about Quay. I can't remember hearing this about, McDuffie or anything else. But Matt LaFleur went out of his way to say that the way that he read that play stood out to him. And that there's no question about Edgerrin Cooper's physical talent, his speed, his tackling ability, stuff like that are all things that were the reason that he was drafted as high as he was. What's going to set his ceiling is how well he's able to read the plays in front of him and how well he's able to fit into this defense. So I would say the fact that he's at least doing that well so far, big deal, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. He could be linebacker
really good.
1.
He could be really good.
He could be really good. He could make a huge difference in this defense.
I'm trying not to get over my skis, but he could be really good.
He's my favorite for top rookie of this year.
I think that's definitely a possibility. I think you could argue pole position maybe in terms of like he's going to be really important to what they're doing. My next one is Anders Carlson being the most consistent kicker so far, at least in the open practices. Matt LaFleur has gone out of his way to say, each of these guys have had their day. Podlesny, Joseph, and Carlson. But in the ones that have been open to reporters, Carlson has been, I would say, far and away the best. Is that fair to say?
No deal.
No, not until, that's fair.
I'm like, fair. So what?
Yeah, that's true. I don't disagree. I just wanted to see what you thought.
I'm giving no deal to that one.
Yeah, I don't give.
Because it's not like Joseph has been all that amazing in the pros either.
I don't care at all until the like real deal happens. The one thing I did hear someone say was like he felt like he was leaving him left when kicking from the left hash and there was wind coming right to left. And I'm like, yeah, that's the exact kick that he missed against the Niners was left hash, missed, like hooked it left, and it never came right. And so apparently he's like focusing on something with that. So maybe that will fix that. He did miss several kicks that same way. But yeah,
I just want
agree.
to sigh so loudly right now.
Yeah, I want to agree. Yeah, no deal. It doesn't. Nothing matters.
Just reliving that kick.
He could go 100% the rest of camp and training camp and the preseason, and it would not matter until another. He needs to make a big kick, essentially. I think for the fan base to trust him.
What he'll have like miss a kick in his like last 6 or 7 games in a row.
Some of them were extra points. Those are only worth one. That's
a kick.
A kick. Yes, that's fair.
A kick.
Okay, Dad. What was your last piece?
I get a third one.
If you have one,
right.
I have one more. If you don't,
Brenton Cox looking, way improved.
A little deal, but the problem is it's just such a logjam at the position. I just don't see how he gets snaps without injury. Again, knock on wood. But he could look amazing, but I just don't think he's going to pass. I mean, Preston and Gary and Lucas Van Ness are going to get the majority of the snaps. Enigbare has looked good when he's gotten snaps. So the question is, does he hop Enigbare for fourth? Because I don't think they're going to really rotate 5 guys or even have 5 active on game day. So, I mean, it's a good deal for him in terms of I think it increases his chances of making the team because I think he was on the roster bubble. But in terms of getting playing time, in terms of impacting winning for the Packers, I don't think he plays still unless there's an injury, unfortunately.
I see it more of the long-term thing. Not necessarily this year, but
how long term?
Not necessarily this year, but next year.
Okay. I
Unless
see what
you
you're
think
saying.
Preston is going to be back next year.
I mean, next year he'd be what, edge 4? Like Enigbare's still there, Lucas Van Ness is still there, Gary's still there. I don't know. But the thing is, we're talking about edge 4 in 2 years. Like that's what we're talking about.
Yep.
So
they'd be set. They wouldn't need to draft an edge.
That's fair. That's fair. I had 4.
Just like this year, they felt like they didn't need to draft an edge because they had 4.
They got 5 apparently. We'll see.
Maybe they have 5.
Okay, and my last
They didn't draft an edge rusher because Brenton Cox was looking so good. They knew it.
It's yeah, exactly. And because Enigbare didn't get hurt. That was a big reason that we were like
that was
you
the
need
shocker.
To draft
I
an
was
edge
like
rusher.
I was picking an edge rusher in the second round in a bunch of mock drafts because I thought Enigbare was going to be out until January.
And who knows how he would look. Okay, my last one. This I think was from 2 days ago's presser with Matt LaFleur. Him saying that Carrington Valentine is someone who has like quote unquote stood out to him in the off-season workouts. Big deal, little deal, or no deal?
Little deal. Because he seems to still be behind Stokes.
Yeah. That I agree. Because it does seem like it's just going to be hard for that corner 2 job. I think he's done enough, though, where I think it's an open competition between him and Stokes, even if Stokes is ahead right now.
I was thinking it was going to be, more evenly split of a competition right now.
That's true.
But it seems like, at least from what we've heard and the bits that have been available, Stokes has been in the lead.
I mean,
and I thought it would be more 50-50.
I see what you're saying, but also at the same time, the last 3 practices that have been open, Jair hasn't been active. So it's been Stokes and Valentine. They've both been going. We have no idea what would have happened if...
It has been a little while since they had to decide.
Yeah. Okay, well, those are our last little notes from minicamp. We're going to have a long time until training camp, so be ready for, a lot of speculation, I guess, from now until then, because we're not going to be getting any new information. But anyway, Dad, do you want to start us off?
So to kick us off.
We're talking, like we said, about offensive line configurations, because engine of the team, really. Dad, do you want to kick us off with the first offensive line combination that, you wanted to talk about today in terms of how you think the Packers might approach this group on offense?
Yeah, so one of the ones I think could realistically happen, and I can't remember if they've done a little bit of this in the OTAs or mini camps, is a combo of Rasheed Walker at left tackle, Jordan Morgan at left guard, Myers at center, Elgton Jenkins at right guard, and Zach Tom at right tackle.
Okay.
And then maybe Dillard was the swing tackle job back up.
Fair.
So can make my cases for that lineup. So for Rasheed Walker at left tackle, in the pros, he's only ever played left tackle in the regular season and playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
And at Penn State, he played 2,115 snaps at left tackle and only 29 at right tackle and 2 at left guard. And then the most experience he's had at right tackle is in the preseason, where he's played 72 snaps at right tackle and 120 at left tackle. So like the most experience he has at right, even just at right tackle, not even on the inside, is in the preseason the last 2 years.
From what you just said, he has played 101 combined snaps at right tackle between college and the professional level, essentially in like the last 7 years. So He has not played a lot of right tackle. To be fair, though, right tackle was the first place that the Packers, the first place that the Packers deployed him when they had that preseason. Like they started him out at right tackle. That's the only thing I'm going to add there. But you're right. Almost no experience at right tackle.
So little. And he's done, pretty amazingly well for a 7th round pick. So firstly, he had the 23rd best PFF pass blocking grade among offensive tackles with at least 100 pass blocking snaps. It was 74.3. And amongst Green Bay returning offensive linemen, he had the 2nd best pass blocking grade by PFF, behind only Jenkins. Last year, he was 3rd overall because Bakhtiari had a great blocking grade for his one game that he played. And ESPN liked him even more than PFF, giving him the 2nd best pass blocking win rate, pass block win rate amongst all tackles, behind only Trent Williams.
Yeah, an ESPN pass block win rate, for those of you that don't know, is does your man beat you in 2.5 seconds or less? That's considered a loss. Keeping them at bay for more than 2.5 seconds is considered a win.
Right. So it's got to be your individual ability to keep your quarterback clean long enough for a standard play. Now, the case against is he's got below average run blocking grade at 57.6.
And I think they felt that a lot. So, because that's what I was going to ask you when I just stopped it earlier, where I was like, because what you said is what I often find myself saying. He's really good for a 7th round pick. Now, is that what you want at left tackle?
Well, but I would say he's really good. He's just good as a pass blocker.
Yeah, but
he's just plain good. Not good for a 7th rounder. His run blocking and pass blocking is more important.
It's true.
His run blocking grade is not as, which kind of surprised me because he seemed coming out of college a bit of a mauler.
Yeah, I think he's got the right attitude for it. It's just he doesn't have any drive. Like he doesn't have the power. And that's the problem with the Packers line really the last 2 or 3 years is despite, Aaron Jones' success, a lot of times it felt like it was in spite of, the offensive line rather than because of the offensive line. And anytime Aaron Jones didn't play, there was no run game. And that's because the offensive line couldn't open holes for anyone.
And also, it especially shows up, it seemed like it shows up a lot in short yardage.
And the short yardage, yeah. And in the playoffs.
Goal to go.
But anyway, continue.
So then I'm jumping around a little bit because I'm not going just across I could go across should I go across the
Sure, take us to
field?
Why you have Morgan at left guard.
So get the rookie on the field, get your rookie first rounder on the field. He was elite at pass blocking his last 2 years in Arizona with 87.1 and 84.2 PFF grades. 6th best in all of FBS for tackles with at least 100 snaps.
Yeah, keep in mind, though, listeners, those grades were at tackle, not at guard. Just so
those grades are at tackle, right? But on the left side, anyway. So this is more about the quality of play to try to get him on the field as a rookie. And he's only given up 1 sack in true pass sets over the last 2 years. And so I would rather get him on the field at guard with Walker at offensive tackle than take Walker off the field to get Morgan at left tackle in favor of an even worse player at guard than Walker is.
It's fair.
Now, here's the issue. He's not as good at run blocking per PFF, but is still pretty good at 77 and 78.6 the last 2 years. Not elite like he is in the pass blocking. And so that you might expect those numbers to drop a little bit in the pros. How much is unclear. So, we might have 2 guys on the same side with this is the case against whose run blocking isn't great
And I have another offensive line configuration that also has Walker at left tackle and Jordan Morgan at left guard. And that was one of my red flags for that configuration is not only are you putting two not great maybe run blockers on the left side, you're also putting a 7th rounder going into his second year starting and a rookie who has never played guard before on the blind side of your quarterback, who you're about to pay a lot of money. Is that a great idea? It doesn't sound like it when you say it like that. It doesn't sound like a great idea. Is all I'm going to say.
Just because you describe it and it sounds bad,
Who knows?
You're describing the true situation. Yeah, for you guys, listeners, you don't hear the thumbs up I'm giving, the sarcastic thumbs up I'm giving.
Yes, and that's the thing is it's not even a thumbs up. You don't hear the implied sarcasm in a thumbs up that you can't see. But anyway, so you're thinking Walker at left tackle, Morgan at left guard, and then Myers Elgton,
at center because the Packers seem to love him. And then Elgton at right guard. Now, he's barely played any right guard, but he has played on the right side at tackle. So he's just able to play both sides. Gave up 0 sacks last year and had the 6th best PFF pass blocking grade amongst guards with 100 snaps. And then, of course, Zach Tom at right tackle because I think he's basically their best O-lineman. And yeah, I would rather have him at tackle than on the inside just because he's been so good at it.
Yeah, I think I'm looking at this now. I think all four of our offensive line configurations have Zach Tom at right tackle. So I think that's something that
means that we don't believe that rumor about him being.
I think we have new information.
Hall of Fame center.
I think we have new information. I think if he was healthy now and had the opportunity to get reps at center in the offseason, I would be totally open to it. But now the fact that you're not going to be ready until training camp, I just think moving positions at that point, like you need a whole offseason to change positions like that, in my opinion, even though he has experience at center. And I think that the fact that he's injured is totally has thrown that out as an option for me. So like you said, that was your first one, which was Walker at left tackle, Elgton at left guard, Myers at center.
No,
Walker at left tackle, Morgan at left guard, Myers at center, Elgton at right guard, and then Zach Tom at right tackle.
Zach Tom.
So anything else you want to say about that one? Because I have one that's pretty similar, which is Walker at left tackle, Morgan at left guard, Jenkins at center, Sean Ryan at right guard, and Zach Tom at right tackle. And so this is very similar to what you said. Like you were saying with, keeping Walker there at left tackle, that's obviously very nice. The other strength of it is it puts, I would say, the minimum amount of stress on Jordan Morgan that you could possibly do. He's not on the blind side, like protecting him at left tackle. He's not the most important position on the line immediately, and he doesn't need to switch sides. Yes, he needs to switch positions, but I would still argue switching positions to left guard is less stressful than, hey, you're the left tackle, go block Nick Bosa, JJ Watt, or TJ Watt, et cetera, Myles Garrett by yourself on an island. So that's the big strength, is it puts the minimum amount of stress on, Jordan Morgan as a rookie. The other strength was you're moving on from Myers, who's on the last year of his deal, and, you have more experience for the next season. Myers is going to be a free agent after this season. So just something where it's like you're moving on a little bit early. He's been very up and down. He's been very up and down. So it's just some numbers. He was last year 16th amongst 31 centers in pressure rate allowed, but he was 25th in sack rate and 27th in run blocking grade, all that per PFF. He had the lowest average PFF grade, this is still Josh Myers, of any of the returning Packers offensive line starters, and also had the second highest variance amongst his scores of any of the Packers returning offensive line starters. So he's really up and down, and it's mostly been not great. So bad and high variance is not a great place to be. So this formation with Jenkins at center would, allow them to move on, and it would allow them to play one of their better offensive linemen, Jenkins, in a more impactful position at center than, I would say left guard is less important. I think most people would agree center is a more important position than guard. The downsides to this, though, number one, you have to play Sean Ryan. No offense to my guy Sean Ryan, but I
had considered this very lineup, and I was like, okay, so I'm choosing between Myers and Ryan, essentially.
Yeah. But the issue is Sean Ryan would have to play, And last year, per PFF, amongst guards who played at least as many snaps as he did, there were 90 of them. He ranked 64th out of 90 in pressure rate. He didn't allow any sacks, so that's a plus. But 64th out of 90 in pressure rate is not great. And so you'd have to play him at right guard. I think at times last year, he looked like he had his feet in cement anytime he had to block anyone with any kind of lateral quickness.
Every once in a while, he just didn't
move his feet.
Unable to move.
Yeah, and I think that's just the biggest problem for him right now. It also requires Elgton to move to a position that he hasn't played since 2020, and he has the fewest snaps at besides right guard. He's only played 6% of his career snaps at center. It is also, by PFF grade, his lowest graded position. He has been worst at center than any of the other 5 spots, or any of the other 4 spots he's played. He's actually been best at left tackle. However, I will say, at center, he would his pressure rate from the 5 games where he played predominantly center back in 2020, so very small sample size, but that pressure rate would have ranked 3rd amongst those 31 centers this past year that I was talking about. He had a very good pressure rate allowed, even though the PFF grade wasn't great. So that is something. And like I said, the other downside is you're really playing with fire on that left side of the line. I just don't know if I love trusting the blind side of your quarterback who's about to make $55 million to 2 guys with not a lot of experience. But so that was mine. That is not my favorite of my 2 offensive line combinations. That'll be the next one I talk about. But I feel like it was at least related to the one that you talked about. Dad, any thoughts on that one, or do you want to go to your next one?
Yeah, so I had considered this same lineup as my first, but for the reasons you talked about, I decided to go with Myers instead of Ryan. Yeah, it doesn't mean I've completely ignored Ryan.
Yeah, he's trying. He's probably better than Royce Newman. Like, probably. I think he did technically grade out worse than Royce Newman in a couple things, but I don't know. I don't know if I love it. I was almost tempted. You know what I was tempted to do? I was almost tempted to put Jacob Monk at right guard and just say, I can't say. Here's the one thing for Jacob Monk: I haven't heard his name like one time in the last 3 practices.
Yeah,
so
does he exist? Has he been there?
I don't think I've
heard anybody mention it. Like whether he's doing well or not.
I haven't heard his name one time, but that could be awesome. That could just mean you're not getting beat at all.
I was tempted to put Jacob Monk at center.
That'd be interesting, but we can't get a little. That'd be a little too kooky. But anyway, what was your next offensive line combination that you think the Packers might want to take a look at?
So my next combo is basically what I call the run it back lineup, with Walker at left tackle, Jenkins at left guard, Myers at center, Ryan at right guard, and Tom at right tackle. So, what they did last year for a decent amount of the time. It was minus Runyon, who Ryan was switching time with for the last 8 weeks of the season. So this is basically Packers playing it safe, recreate last year's lineup, which was admittedly really good in pass protection.
Can I call a quick timeout? Can we agree that was bordering on almost ridiculous, rotating at left tackle and rotating at right guard, in regular season games, you are alternating drives of 2 of your 5 linemen.
It was kind of bonkers. It's
I feel like
really.
I thought I was taking crazy. I feel like we did not talk about this nearly enough. That's an absurd thing to do. No one else does that. Only that's such a, I don't know. It's weird to me. It was weird they were doing that.
This is not a position you are giving people a rest.
Yeah.
Normally, your offensive line would play the entire game. Your starters, and not it's our pass rushers need a break.
And the only other time I've seen them do it was with Elgton when he was a rookie, and they just really wanted to get him on the field. And they alternating
did that a little with Lane Taylor.
With Lane Taylor before he got hurt. And it's just it's so confusing to me. I don't, but anyway, sorry, continue.
Yeah, it was weird. The Runyon thing, maybe you'd say that he was getting back from injury, and he talked about how he went through a stretch where he didn't feel right.
Yeah.
So that might explain some of it.
I thought he was mostly better than Ryan. And Rasheed Walker was for sure better than Yosh Nijman. I'll raise my hand. I was like, hey, maybe play some Yosh Nijman for some run block. Yosh Nijman was, no offense to my guy, horrible last year. He had a bad year last year.
Yeah.
Remember when I was like, oh, just keep Yosh Nijman, don't trade him because you'll get a 3rd round comp pick for him. I sound like an idiot in hindsight.
Well, he signed a decent contract.
No, he signed like a nothing contract for the
Oh,
Panthers.
was it nothing?
It was like
no,
$5
for
million or
Panthers?
something. Yeah, I think it was Panthers.
Jags?
No, Panthers, pretty sure.
Panthers. Okay. But yeah, so as a group, this was the second best team. Green Bay was the second best in the league in pass block win rate per ESPN. Now, like a lot of things, for run block win rate, they were 16th, middle of the pack. Well, not terrible, but not nearly as good as pass blocking.
Yeah.
Per FTN Fantasy, they were 5th in adjusted sack rate, 8th in adjusted line yards, so a run blocking stat, 7th best in stuff percentage. So that's runs. Stuff is a run that's stopped at or behind the line of scrimmage. However, they're only 22nd in power success, which is success on 1 or 2 yards to go runs on 3rd or 4th down.
Yeah, and that tracks with like the eye test, because this line, like you were saying, which is essentially the starting 5 from last year, but with Ryan in there instead of Runyon. Right, you had Ryan in there instead of Runyon, right? In this configuration. And Morgan as the swing tackle, correct?
Morgan would then be the swing tackle as he develops to take over something next year when the line is going to look like totally different from this, I think, in 2025.
But anyway, just to, back to what I was saying, it matches the eye test. They really struggled to run block last year, and it was a lot of Aaron Jones making chicken salad out of chicken you-know-what. And I just wish we could have a line that could do both. I was so frustrated at times, and we've seen over the years that the offense can really sputter when they can't run the ball. And we saw it against San Francisco. In the second half of that game, they had that 150-yard run from Aaron Jones, but besides that, they had 5 runs, and none of them went for more than 3 yards or something. It was somewhere around that. It was like 5 or 6 runs, and none went for more than 3 yards once Tom was out. They couldn't run the ball, and they couldn't do anything. They couldn't do anything once Tom went down. And so it's like...
And he was by far their best run blocker by a country mile.
And it didn't help that was like, I mean, he's a great player, but that was the worst game I've ever seen Elgton Jenkins play. Like, and PFF agrees. They have him in like the low 50s for that game in every facet. He was getting smoked by Javon Hargrave in that game. But yeah, and so just I'm thinking about that. I'm like, man, if they could have just ran the ball or had a line that let them maul a little bit. There were 3 times in the first half of that game in the red zone, they couldn't convert 3rd and 1, 4th and 1s because they just can't
only got 6 points out of 3 red zone trips.
Because they couldn't get any push. They have these guys who are decent pass blockers, but they can't get any push. And so that's why I'm hesitant to just run it back with the same group, even though I think it wouldn't be a disaster if they did. But I think it limits the upside. Sorry.
And Ryan's strength is supposed to be run blocking.
That's true.
In college, he had an elite grade of 86.1 his final year. It was much better than Runyon's college grade at run blocking at 66.1. However, and then Runyon has never been a good run blocker in the pros per PFF with grades below 60, so below average in all 4 of his years, with 53.2 last year being his lowest run blocking grade.
Yeah.
And last year was also his lowest pass blocking grade since his rookie year. So Runyon had a rough year last year. However, he was still better than Ryan.
Yeah.
Who had a pass blocking grade of only 42.5 and a run blocking grade of 50.8 to Runyon's 62.4 and 53.2 respectively.
Yeah.
However, Ryan was credited with giving up no sacks.
Yeah, but like I was saying earlier, also 64th of 90 in pressure rate allowed, which is not great.
Gave up a lot of
bad.
pressures, a lot of hurries.
Yeah. And quick hurries too. Like getting smoked off the line, like
double
not
hurries.
not touching the D tackle,
failing to make contact.
He needs quicker feet.
Failing to make contact percentage.
No, I don't think it was that bad, but there were definitely reps where that happened. He just his feet just need to be quicker. But yeah, like you said, as poor as Runyon was in a down year, he was still better than Ryan, in my opinion. I don't know.
Yeah, and so then I also tried to look to see if Ryan was improving at all as the year went on. Is there light at the end of the tunnel? So I looked at his PFF grades and to try to smooth things out, because there's a lot of variation from game to game. So I did a 3-week rolling average for his PFF grades at both run blocking and pass blocking. And I also corrected for snap total. So, some games he had 10 snaps, some games he had 30. And I did it for, broke it down, run blocking snaps and pass blocking snaps. And so I basically got a per snap PFF grade average.
Mm-hmm.
And the short answer to that long lead time is no.
He did not get better.
He did not get better. It's basically a flat line. Well, either a flat line or a line that bobs up and down still, even with the rolling average correction.
Love that for us.
Yeah, his best 3 games were 12, 14, and 18. So they're like not grouped together.
Yeah, not even in a row
place.
or anything. Yeah.
So the success of this lineup depends on a dramatic improvement from year 2 to 3 for Ryan, pretty much.
Yeah, and it's possible, but it has not been a super successful start to the career for Sean Ryan.
Faith-based lineups.
I will say though, if they run that lineup out where it's just the run it back lineup, I'll also call that the Jordan Morgan isn't ready lineup. That's the lineup where it's like, hey, he needs to develop more, or like the Jordan Morgan isn't a guard lineup, like he's only a tackle. And the other benefit of that is you feel pretty good about your swing tackle, whereas in some of these other lineups with Jordan Morgan at guard, I doubt that they, like, if heaven forbid, knock on wood again, either Tom or Walker go down, you have a tackle on the bench to come. I think if, Morgan's in there at guard, that they're not going to want to kick him out to tackle mid-game.
Not as a rookie where they're already trying to get him acclimated. So then we're looking at like Dillard or Caleb Jones.
Exactly.
Or Travis Glover, I suppose.
So that is the benefit where it's like, hey, you feel better about your swing tackle there if Morgan is on the bench. So that's something. Anything else on that lineup, that run it back lineup that you...
No, I think I went over the pluses and the minuses and the unknowns.
The several minuses. Okay, well, I'm going to end here, our last one, with my favorite lineup personally. Which of your 2 was the one that you liked the most?
The first one.
Okay.
The one where Morgan, I think they have their best
5.
The best 5.
Which is Walker, Morgan, Myers, Jenkins, Tom. That was your favorite. So this one is my favorite. And it is pretty much the same, but it is Walker, Jenkins, Myers, Morgan, Tom. So it is the same as yours, but I was very concerned, like we said, about that, having Walker and Morgan protecting the blind side just by themselves over there. So I left Elgton at left guard, and I put Morgan at right guard. Now, the downside there is it's probably the hardest. It's the biggest struggle for Morgan because he has to flip which side he's playing and move inside. So that's like the biggest adjustment that he could probably possibly have. So that's the downside. The upsides are, I would say the biggest one is it's the best 5 in my opinion, and it requires the least amount of movement for the existing line. 100% of Rasheed Walker's pro snaps in the regular season have come at left tackle. 100% of Myers snaps at the pro level have come at center. 75% of Elgton snaps have come at left guard, and 75% of Tom snaps have come at right tackle. So every returning player is in the spot that they're most comfortable. So that's the big thing. You're essentially taking, like you said, last year's group that was like successful at pass blocking, but you're replacing Runyon and Ryan. You're replacing with Jordan Morgan. You took Morgan in the first round. I would hope he's better than Ryan and Runyon. I would hope. And plus, he needs playing time to develop. That's why I think he should probably be playing right away. You also keep Myers at center. That's another strength. I know I was just saying that it was a strength to move on from him, but there are strengths to keeping him there as well. Tom Silverstein actually wrote an article, or you keep Myers at center, and the main strength there, sorry, I got a little ahead of myself, is that he's very used to calling the protections and all the pre-snap stuff that you need to do in this offense for Jordan Love. And Tom Silverstein of the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel wrote this offseason that sources had told him one of the biggest reasons the Packers, have an elevated view of Josh Myers is that, quote, he has developed a good rapport with quarterback Jordan Love, who has come to trust Myers' protection calls at the line of scrimmage. He also is accurate with his shotgun snaps, which is critical for a quarterback, end quote. So it sounds like, there is a good connection between Myers and Love, and they seem to trust each other. Jordan Love trusts him. He's used to that operation. He feels good setting the protections with Myers there and Myers' help. So that's a strength, I would say, is having him there at center to do all that pre-snap stuff and keeping him there where he has the most experience at that. Weaknesses. Like we said, you still have to struggle with the ups and downs of Myers as a player, like after the snap, which is a thing, like we were saying earlier. 27th in run blocking grade per PFF, 25th in sack rate, 16th in pressure rate. This is all amongst 31 centers. So, middle of the pack in pressure rate and lower in the other two. He had the, like I said, lowest average PFF grade of any of the returning and the second highest variance. So he's really up and down. And then, like I was saying with that other lineup where Morgan was starting at guard, you do weaken your swing tackle position because it's probably Dillard coming off the bench to play tackle as opposed to, Morgan, I would feel probably a little more comfortable coming off the bench playing tackle. And they probably wouldn't kick him out mid-game. So that was my favorite was Walker, Jenkins, Myers, Morgan, Tom. So that was my favorite of those. Dad, any thoughts on that one?
I think, the training camp and preseason are really going to tell the tale here about where Morgan can play.
Yes, and that's something that Matt LaFleur...
They have been working him kind of all over. They've been doing both sides, guard and tackle.
And something Matt LaFleur said, I can't remember if it was this past presser or one of the previous ones, was he was asked, Jordan Morgan trying all these positions, and what it came down to, I think he said, during training camp, we're going to try and hone him down to one. Like I think right now they're trying to see where he's best at, and then once training camp hits, it sounds like they're going to have him just stick at one spot and practice there and get ready to go.
They're going to try not to put too much on his plate in training camp once they've decided what his spot is. Yeah, right now, I think, they're trying to figure out what his spot is.
Yeah, which is maybe a good thing, maybe a bad thing.
I wonder if they've decided now. Yeah. If they say training camp is going to hone in, I mean, how quickly in training camp? I suppose it could be before preseason. They've decided.
I think part of that is also how ready is Zach Tom. I think has a big impact on that as well, because I think if Zach Tom's not ready,
he might be ready by training camp.
They said he was going to be. I'm just saying we don't actually know. Like you never know what could happen. Again, knock on wood. The fourth of this show, and I think that might be a sign to wrap things up here. Dad, any last bits on the offensive line? It is the most important, I would say, position group as a whole besides quarterback on the team. How are you feeling, holistically on the whole about the Packers offensive line? Just kind of, your last little odds and ends on this position group.
I'd say, holistically, I feel pretty good about the offensive line. And I think their depth is repaired.
It's better than last year. The depth is certainly better than last year.
They lost a lot as well. They lost 3 players who they were, actually, I guess you can't say Bakhtiari played a lot.
I was going to say 2 players.
You were expecting, 3 players you were expecting to get a lot of snaps from.
Did they really expect to get a lot of snaps from Bakhtiari at the end? I think
not by the end, but at the beginning of the year.
Maybe.
But I think they drafted well, and I also have some hopes for Donovan Jennings
out of USF, South Florida. Go Bulls!
Yeah, so I think that there's hope for the depth even after this year with some of the players added. So I think we won't get too much from Monk or like Glover or Jennings this year, but more for the future. It'd be interesting to see how it plays out. The 3 of them battling against, say, Caleb Jones, Tenuta, and Telfort.
Yeah, and I'm just going to
They had like lineups of Jones and who was it? Was it Tenuta or Telfort playing next to each other?
I think it was Telfort. Yeah, big. But anyway, I'm going to spring one last question on you, because everyone always talks about, Camp Darling. Who's the wide receiver Camp Darling going to be? But I do feel like every year there is an offensive line Camp Darling that kind of comes out of nowhere, gets some reps with the ones, is like clearly like rotating.
Oh.
If you had to pick one of like the newer guys, who do you think it would be?
I would say this year's winner of I think he's this year's winner of the Ben Braden Award.
Ben Braden didn't make the team, so I want to say no. But because Ben Braden got snaps with the ones and then did not make the team, which was definitely
this is
less than ideal.
A guy who's getting snaps with the ones who probably isn't going to be getting snaps in the ones in the regular season. How's that?
Okay,
Andre Dillard.
Okay, and he already has been, so that's a bit of a safe pick.
There's a guy who's been getting snaps with the ones that I don't think it's a big deal.
You almost Collinsworth. You said there's a guy, not quite here's a guy. So we'll count as a half a Collinsworth. I think I'm interested in Donovan Jennings. I want to see what happens there. But anyway,
I just don't think we've had a chance. When you say like Camp Darling, the guy who's actually getting a lot of like press about how he's been out there, Jennings, I haven't heard much about him. I'm very interested. I think,
and maybe that's a good thing. You never know. He's not getting beat, probably.
Right. But I haven't heard much about Monk, Jennings,
Glover.
or Glover.
Yeah. I honestly haven't heard much outside of the starters on the line, which, I mean, they're not
we've heard some reports of like Caleb Jones a little bit.
Yeah, I suppose that's fair.
Run game, like Bessie, like flattened Jonathan Ford.
I will say we've been seeing a lot more Dillard than I thought we would when he signed, which is maybe a good thing.
Yes. We've been seeing
maybe a really bad thing.
Oh,
maybe it could be very bad. It could be really
here's
bad.
Here's an interesting thing I saw about Dillard actually when I was looking up all this. His ESPN run block win rate isn't bad.
Okay. We'll take not bad in terms of run block. He was like
18th best in the league or something like that in run block win rate.
Okay, that's not terrible.
Amongst 10th best. 10th best offensive tackle run block win rate last year for Andre Dillard. So even though the general consensus that he had a rough year, his run blocking was good.
Well, hopefully, he can kind of get the career back on track with the Packers. And if he does, I mean, that's one of the best vet min signings of the year for sure. But anyway, thank you, everyone, so much for listening. Today, we've been breaking down different Packers offensive line combinations, which is, that's the bedrock of this team, of this offense. And so it's going to be really important to see who the 5 are out there in training camp, how they're going to arrange these guys. We got a lot of players who play a lot of different positions, and I think that's going to be a fun problem for the coaching staff to solve, but definitely an important one. If you like what you heard here today, come give us a follow on Twitter at FatherSonPacker. We tweet out when we have new episodes out, stats we find when we're doing research for these for these podcasts, articles and content from other Packers content creators, news and roster moves and injury reports, et cetera, from the Packers. One-stop shopping for everything Titletown. That's at FatherSonPacker. And then subscribe to on your podcast platform of choice, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. Even put all our episodes out on YouTube. If you subscribe to us there, we'd really appreciate it. Leave a comment, tweet at us. We'll try and respond. We love just chatting it up Packers wise with any fans of the green and gold. But once again, thank you so much for listening. And until next time, go Pack, go.
Go Pack, go.